Hi, I'm Avery. While my family booked balcony suites and spa packages, I was in a hospital bed praying for one signature, just one, to schedule my life-saving surgery. But they said I could survive a day without dialysis. They raised champagne glasses on a cruise, while I was hooked to a machine to stay alive. Now they want my kidney. No apology, no regret, just, you're the only match. How do you respond to people who only remember your name when they need your body? Would you say yes? Or would you finally say, enough? The moment I heard Jamella's voice drift out of my phone speaker, I knew something was off. It was casual, too casual, full of that breathy laughter she saves for when she thinks no one's watching. We should book the balcony suites. Mom said ocean view or nothing. I mean, come on. It's her 40th anniversary, not a budget cruise. Her voice rolled over me like a wave I didn't ask to be caught in. I hit play again. Maybe this time she'd say my name. Maybe there was a mention, some small, accidental inclusion that I missed. But no, just her, talking to our brother Marcus, laughing about mimosa bars and formal night dresses, tossing names like confetti, except mine, not once. Even the group chat name stung. Fam Trip 24. I was technically part of that group. My name sat right there at the top of the notification, but listening to that voicemail, it was clear. I was never part of the conversation. Funny how a phone can connect you to everything and still make you feel like a ghost. It was always like that, though. I was the easy one. The one who didn't cause problems, didn't talk back, didn't cry when mom forgot a parent-teacher night, or when Jamela got a new car while I begged for used textbooks. I used to think that meant I was stronger. Now, I think it just meant I was easier to ignore. I remember the last time I spoke to Mom, 2 weeks ago maybe. She called while I was getting ready for dialysis, said she was just checking in, but spent more time complaining about traffic near the nail salon than asking about my lab results. I'd mentioned the transplant list was moving fast. She responded with, "We'll talk soon, sweetie," and hung up. Soon never comes for people like me. I sat with that for a while before finally picking up the phone, dialed her number. It rang twice before she answered, chipper as ever. "Hey baby, just finishing up packing. Can you believe we leave in 3 days?" I didn't answer that. I cleared my throat. "Mom, I wanted to talk to you about the surgery window. The hospital called. They might have a donor by next month. They said I'll need a family member available to sign." She cut in. "Avery, we've already paid the deposit. Thousands of dollars, and it's only a week. You'll be fine for a few days. Don't be dramatic." That word, dramatic, it always lands like an accusation, like I've made a performance out of survival. She kept talking, something about non-refundable flights and how she needed this break. I stopped listening, not out of spite, but because every sentence was erasing me in real time. When she paused, I spoke quietly. "Of course, enjoy the cruise. I'll update the hospital myself." Her sigh of relief came too quick, too loud. "Thank you, baby. You've always been so understanding." That wasn't understanding. That was surrender. I hung up and stared at the wall for a long moment, then grabbed my notebook. Labeled a new page, Family Decisions. I wrote the date, jotted down the call summary. No rage, no passive aggression, just facts. That was my new strategy. Observe, record, move accordingly. I opened my hospital binder and scanned the checklist again. Secondary signer required. I scrolled through my phone contacts. Marcus? No. Jamela? Absolutely not. I stopped at Mom. Ice. Emergency contact? Not anymore. I deleted the entry, thumb hovering just long enough to make it count. Then I called legal aid and requested a free consultation for a medical power of attorney. The volunteer on the line, a soft-spoken woman named Dana, scheduled me for Thursday. I felt like I was making arrangements not just for my surgery, but for my future self. The one that no longer asked to be saved, only not to be sabotaged. On a yellow sticky note, I wrote, "No family contact unless life or death. And even then, ask me first." I stuck it inside the binder. Bright. Clear. unapologetic. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. A group message titled, "Countdown to Paradise," lit up the screen. My stomach clenched before I even opened it. Inside were photos, screenshots from a FaceTime call, everyone grinning, drinks raised, comparing cabins and outfits. Jamela was in the middle of it all, camera tilted just enough to show off her manicure. And then I heard it. A voice, probably Marcus's, saying, "Don't worry, Avery's tough. She'll survive a day without dialysis, right?" The room went quiet, even though nothing had changed. No one was around. The lights were still dim. The tea on my counter had gone cold. I played the message again. "She'll survive a day without dialysis." Not a joke? Not a jab. Just said. Like a fact. Like someone commenting on the weather. Like I wasn't even real. Just some inconvenient item on a to-do list they hoped wouldn't spoil their cruise. I put my phone down. Slowly. Carefully. Then I sat on the floor and stared at nothing for a long while. Not crying, not trembling, just unraveling. Because it wasn't the cruelty. It was the ease. I listened to it again. The sentence. "She'll survive a day without dialysis." Not shouted, not whispered, just said, tossed into the air like it didn't matter, like it wasn't tethered to a real person breathing through real pain. I played the video over until my phone battery flashed red. Still no tears. Just this dull ache in the center of my chest that refused to budge, like someone left a window open during a storm and all the heat had escaped the room. Some words don't stab. They seep. They sink in slowly, rearranging the wiring inside your head until you stop expecting warmth from places you used to call home. I didn't text back. I didn't call. I sat there and mentally drew a dotted line between myself and my family, not to separate us. No, that would have taken effort. This was quieter, more passive, like standing still in a crowd and realizing no one's noticed you haven't moved. I wasn't angry, not then. A few days before all this, I had lunch with Jamela at a Thai spot halfway between our homes. She picked the place. I paid, as usual. The check came. She smiled like it was routine and slid my debit card out of my open wallet. "I'll Venmo you later," she said, eyes already scanning her phone. I nodded, more out of habit than agreement. That moment came back to me now, not because of what she said, but because of what I hadn't thought about until now. Something inside nudged me. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. The transaction sat there, dated 2 days after that lunch. Coastal Travel Group. Cruise deposit. A 4-figure amount. Too familiar to be coincidence. My breath didn't catch. It just stopped for a second. I called the credit union. Gave my details. The woman on the line, kind and efficient, confirmed it. My card was saved on file. Used for a group travel booking by someone named Marcus. No fraud alert because technically I'd authorized the card. I thanked her and hung up. It wasn't just a throwaway comment anymore, it was a transaction. They were planning a cruise, with my money, while I calculated how many hours of work I'd need to cover my next round of blood tests. I didn't call to confront them. I opened my notebook instead, the same one where I'd been logging my dialysis times, side effects, appointment dates. A new tab. Financial boundary violations. Date, time, screenshot, bank confirmation number. Then I opened my email and forwarded myself the record. Subject line, receipts, just in case. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was building a record. And I remembered something Maya Angelou once said, something I used to think sounded harsh, but now rang crystal clear. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. No more giving benefit of the doubt to people who treated my needs like noise. No more requests. No more reminders. Just record. Respond accordingly. Later that afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table reviewing my transplant file again. A thick packet of paperwork that had somehow become my bedtime reading. The section I kept returning to was underlined in orange, surgical date pending secondary authorization. Translation: You can't move forward unless someone else moves with you. I highlighted it again, even though the ink had already seeped through the page. Then I looked at the empty space beside authorized family contact. Blank. Meanwhile, my family was picking cruise outfits. I called the hospital. Pressed 4 for the transplant department. A nurse named Charlene answered. "Hi," I said, my voice calm, practiced. "I have a question. Is it possible for a patient to act as their own secondary advocate in cases where no family member is available or willing?" There was a pause. "It's not common, but yes, under certain circumstances." "Good," I replied. "Because I'm ready to sign for myself." She took down my name, scheduled a follow-up. No drama, no disbelief in her tone, just professionalism. It was almost refreshing. After the call, I went to the small storage bin in my bedroom closet. Inside were old photo albums, dusty and untouched. I pulled one out, my 30th birthday. Jamela, Mom, me. We were smiling in the picture, holding cupcakes. For a second, I almost believed we were happy. Tucked behind the photo was a note in Jamela's handwriting. "You'll always be our rock, even if we forget to say it." I stared at it. Then I folded it in half. Once. Then again. Dropped it in the kitchen trash without a sound. Some people imagine letting go as a storm. But sometimes, it's as easy as closing a folder. I whispered aloud, to no one in particular. If they need saving later, they better have booked the return cruise too. That night, I logged out of every family chat, muted every app that pinged with group messages I wasn't truly part of. The silence wasn't empty, it was curated, deliberate. Then I opened a new document on my computer, titled it, "For When They Ask Why." I typed the first sentence. "You said I could survive a day. I just decided to survive the rest without you." I didn't reread it, didn't second guess. Just saved the file, closed the laptop, and let the quiet wrap around me like armor. It was an ordinary Thursday when I saw her name, Magda, a name buried under years of avoidance and unspoken memories. Her message popped up on Facebook, almost casual. "Hey, saw your name trending. I remember more than you think. No, how have you been? No filler. Just that." At first, I hovered over it, unsure if opening the door to the past was worth the energy. But something about the bluntness, the certainty in her words, it pierced the numbness I'd grown so used to. After all, some people stay silent for decades, and some, they know when it's time to speak. We agreed to meet the next day at a small coffee shop tucked between a record store and a yoga studio. Somewhere neutral, somewhere without ghosts. The name hadn't changed, and neither had the chipped tables or handwritten chalkboard menu. By late afternoon, the Florida air had begun its usual trick, warm and damp, smelling faintly of sea salt and pavement. The sun was still visible, casting long, lazy shadows that stretched across the sidewalk like fingers trying to hold on to the day just a little longer. Magda arrived right on time. She looked older, yes, but also grounded. Her eyes met mine like no time had passed. She didn't smile until she sat down, and even then, it was the kind of smile you give before delivering something heavy. "So," she began, stirring a cup of tea she hadn't tasted, "I figured now was the time." There wasn't a script. We started with small talk, jobs we'd left, cities we'd passed through, people who got married we thought never would, but the weathered surface cracked quickly. "You remember middle school?" she asked. I nodded, but it was vague. "You used to come to school dizzy. I'd save my Pop-Tarts for you. You'd say you skipped breakfast, but I always figured it wasn't your choice." I didn't respond. Her voice didn't tremble. She wasn't there to pity me. "Your mom once yelled at me for finishing your lunch, said I ate like a boy and you needed to learn portion control. That stayed with me." I didn't need to ask if she meant to shame me with that memory. She didn't. What she gave me was something else, confirmation. I wasn't just remembering things wrong. I wasn't being sensitive. These weren't flukes. they were patterns. Later that evening, after returning home, I logged into an old medical portal out of curiosity more than purpose. Password reset, two-factor authentication, a digital path I hadn't walked in over a decade. Inside, buried in a section labeled Archived Reports, I found it. Pediatric nephrology, age 14. Notes in sterile clinical terms. Signs consistent with early renal insufficiency suggest family follow-up. No further action recorded. No follow-up scheduled. No confirmation of visit. No acknowledgement of escalation. They knew. They didn't forget. They didn't misunderstand. They chose not to act. I stared at the screen for several minutes before hitting Download PDF, named it ignoredearlyonset.pdf, and added it to the same folder I'd been building, receipts. The most painful realizations aren't the dramatic ones. They're the ones that arrive quiet and undeniable. My hands moved to open another document, but my thoughts had already slipped into something else, a memory long buried. Gym class. 14. Midday heat pressing against my skin. I remember running laps and suddenly feeling like the air had been sucked out of the world. My knees buckled. I hit the ground hard. My coach rushed over, panicked, tried to get me water, offered to take me to the ER. Mom arrived 20 minutes later, heels clicking against the tile. "She's just being dramatic," she told him. "She's always been sensitive to heat. She's fine." I wasn't fine. But when your body betrays you and your voice is dismissed, you begin to wonder if maybe the silence is your fault too. For years, I believed I was fragile. Turned out, I was just ignored. The betrayal was never a knife. It was an absence. A series of doors that never opened when I knocked. After dinner, I walked to the pier near the edge of Bayview Park. It had been years, but the benches were still there, slightly warped, a little rusted. A couple of families were scattered around, walking their dogs or sharing ice cream cones. I sat and watched a man tell his daughter to sip water slowly. "You're looking a little pale, honey. Let's take a break." That's what did it. I couldn't recall a single moment ever when someone looked at me and said that. "You look pale. Are you okay? Drink something." Nothing. I existed in proximity, but never priority. And it struck me, not with anger, but with grief. Not the kind that weeps. The kind that presses in behind your ribs and sits there, refusing to leave. What they never did, the love they never showed, shaped me more than anything they ever said. But I still had power. I still had choice. I whispered to the wind, more to myself than anyone else. What they didn't do made me who I am. But I get to decide what happens next. I left the pier as the sun began to disappear, feeling a strange sense of grounding. Not healing exactly, but something like it. When I got home, I was greeted by a notification from my phone. Jamela had shared a new photo album. Cruise mood board. The preview image was her holding a sun hat, standing on the deck with a drink in her hand. The caption underneath read, "Finally, a family trip with no drama." There it was again, that invisible erasure, not cruel, just clean. I didn't rage, I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to my desk, opened my laptop, and created a new file. Titled, "When They Ask Why." I began typing, "If I ever vanish from your stories, it's because I was never in them to begin with." The paper jammed twice before finally spitting out the last flyer. I stood there in the break room of the dialysis center, holding 20 copies of my GoFundMe. Black and white, no frills, just the facts. Surgery window approaching. Costs not covered. No next of kin available. I pinned one next to the lost cat sign and another beside the community yoga schedule. My hands didn't shake. But there was a hollowness to the motion, like folding napkins at someone else's wedding reception. Later, I left a few flyers at the public library, the laundromat, and a dimly lit corner of the senior center. Every place I walked into, I carried a knot in my chest, not from the asking, but from the knowing. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. Ignoring someone who asks That's another story. Back home, I hovered over the send button in the family group chat. I attached the link. Wrote one line. This is for medical coverage. Any help appreciated. Then I sent it and waited. 2 days passed. Not a single response. No like, no emoji, no thinking of you. Nothing. Instead, my feed filled with reels. Jamela clinking glasses with friends at a rooftop bar, Marcus getting a pedicure and captioning it, self-care, not selfish. Even my mom posted a boomerang of a spa waterfall, adding a long caption about manifesting peace before big adventures. 3 hours and 22 minutes after my message, my mother uploaded a photo of herself holding a frozen margarita in one hand and a boarding pass in the other. I took a screenshot, added it to a new subfolder inside receipts, labeled it seen, ignored, intentional. Because it wasn't just silence anymore, it was strategy. The day of my consultation, I arrived at the hospital 15 minutes early. The transplant coordinator nodded as she led me into the room, sterile, full of artificial light and too much beige. 2 doctors, 1 nurse, a clipboard, 3 chairs. I took one. The one beside me stayed empty. A small part of me expected someone to walk in late, to pretend they'd gotten caught in traffic or misread the appointment time. But no one came. That chair remained vacant the entire hour. One of the doctors looked up and asked gently, "Ms. Grayson, is there anyone you'd like us to call for this session? A family member?" I shook my head. No one who'll pick up. No pity in their eyes, just understanding. And for once, I appreciated the silence. By the end of the consultation, I had signed 4 forms and made 3 more decisions. When asked about legal consent, I simply said, "I'll handle this myself." The doctor hesitated, not out of doubt, but obligation. "We usually recommend another signer, someone to assist post-op." I looked him in the eye. "I've done harder things alone." He nodded. I walked out of that room taller than I'd entered. Not triumphant, just grounded. Outside the main exit, I stopped near a planter full of wilting geraniums and pulled out my phone. Opened a blank text. 2. Me. Message. Today, I became my own emergency contact. Send. That night, I lit a candle, not out of ritual, but for light. I opened my notebook and turned to a fresh page. Title: What Silence Says. I began writing. When they don't reply, it's not because they forgot. It's because they measured your value and found it inconvenient. I wrote every moment from the last 6 weeks. What I sent, what they didn't say, the cruise, the fundraiser, the margarita. I taped a yellow sticky note above the page. Proof is power when words are denied. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I made another GoFundMe. This time, anonymous. No name, no backstory. Just facts. Woman, early 30s, on transplant list. Needs help. Alone. Within 2 hours, 15 strangers donated. A retired teacher sent $50 with a message, "No one should face this alone." I didn't post a thank you, I didn't share the link. I just watched, and for the first time, I felt seen. Later that evening, as I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed. Message from Jamela. "Sorry, haven't checked your message. Cruise Wi-Fi sucks. LOL. Hope you're okay, though." I stood frozen for a second, toothbrush still in hand. I read it again and again. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just her usual flippant way of performing concern. My reply was immediate. "No worries. You've missed enough already. What's one more?" Before she could respond, I deleted the thread, blocked her number, then deleted the entire chat. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop, renamed my receipts folder. Now it read, "Evidence of a family that forgot." The office smelled faintly of printer ink and stale air. I sat across from my transplant coordinator, legs crossed, hands folded tight in my lap. She wore a cardigan that looked too warm for the Florida heat and had the soft kind of voice that people use when they expect the conversation to bruise. "We followed up with your family," she began. "Your parents declined the compatibility testing, formally." I didn't blink. I just leaned slightly forward. "Can I get a copy of that?" She hesitated. "Of course. It's your right." As she slid the paper across the desk, I glanced at it once, then folded it neatly and placed it in my bag without a word. I knew how many hours of my life this single sheet represented, how many silent prayers, how many nights I told myself, "They'll come around, they just don't understand." Now I had proof that they understood just fine, and still said no. They didn't just choose a trip, they chose not to save me. I walked out of the building with the Florida sun glaring like it had something personal to prove. The report in my bag felt like a brick, and every step home echoed louder than the last. At the corner, I paused at the park with the old stone monument dedicated to local veterans. The names etched into granite stood silent, some of them kids barely 20 when they died. I sat on the bench nearest the statue, letting the wind hit my face, and thought about the word sacrifice. People love using it in speeches. Family does too. "We sacrificed so much for you." I've heard that line. But sacrifice without willingness isn't noble. It's manipulation. I remembered one afternoon years ago, Mom folding laundry while watching game shows. I had asked her, gently, why she hadn't come to my school awards ceremony. She never looked up, just said, "Family means always being there. You know that." Yes, I did know that. I also knew what it looked like when they weren't. By the time I reached my apartment, my muscles ached, not from the walk, but from carrying things no one else ever bothered to help lift. I opened my phone, planning to check the email from the coordinator again, and saw a notification from Instagram instead. Jamela had posted a new reel. I tapped it. Champagne glasses clinked against the backdrop of a cruise ship deck. The sun was just setting, painting her dress in a golden hue. She tossed her hair back, smiling. I wasn't in the video, of course. I wasn't anywhere near that ship, but I had been tagged. The caption read, #FamilyStrong, #HealingVibes, #Grateful Journey. There were likes from a few of my mom's church friends, heart emojis from people who hadn't spoken to me since high school. I removed the tag, quietly, then I opened her profile, blocked the account, and turned off notifications. That night, I got a text from Lindsay, an old coworker who meant well but rarely checked the facts before commenting. "Your sister's posts are so beautiful. Hope you're doing better. Praying for you all." I stared at it for a moment, then typed, "Thanks for asking. I'm surviving. On my own." No follow-up from her. And I didn't need one. That message did something in me. It forced a line to be drawn. Not for them, for me. I grabbed a notepad from the kitchen drawer and titled it, "Boundaries." No responding to guilt. No re-explaining what they've already chosen not to understand. No showing up unless they do, too, fully and honestly. It wasn't a manifesto. It was survival protocol. That evening, I sat down at my desk and opened a new email to my transplant coordinator. Subject, request. Do not contact family again. The words came easier than expected. I was clinical, but not cold. Every sentence was shaped with care and steel. I'm formally requesting that no further communication regarding my case be sent to or expected from any member of my family. Please refer only to me as my own primary contact and decision-maker. I attached the test refusal form for reference, then ended with, "I have made peace with their absence. Please help me proceed accordingly. I am no longer someone waiting to be chosen." I hit send. Then I turned off my laptop, folded my arms on the table, and breathed. Not relief exactly, but certainty. Later that night, long after the noise of the street faded and the air finally cooled, there was a knock at the door. Not a buzz, a knock. I wasn't expecting anyone, and my first instinct was to ignore it. but something made me move. I walked to the peephole, careful, quiet. It wasn't anyone I recognized. A young man, maybe in his 20s. Nervous posture, holding a bouquet of lilies in one hand and a small envelope in the other. I opened the door only halfway. "Can I help you?" He looked startled, but then composed himself. "Ma'am, I was asked to deliver this." "She said you'd understand." He handed over the flowers and the envelope. No name on the outside. I watched him walk away, not saying a word. Back inside, I placed the flowers on the counter and sat with the envelope in my lap. When I opened it, my heart stopped. Inside was a name I hadn't heard in a decade, and suddenly, I couldn't breathe. It was nearly dark when the knock came. Same delivery man, same flat expression, same cellophane-wrapped bouquet of yellow tulips. The card was tucked in neatly like always. "Keep going. You matter." No name, no return address, just another quiet reminder from someone out there who saw me. 3 weeks in a row, 3 different bouquets, and still not a word from the people who shared my blood. I placed the flowers next to the others along the windowsill. The stems leaned gently toward one another, like they were having their own conversation in the soft breeze leaking through the cracked window. A dozen silent witnesses to the absence of the ones who should have come first. I stood there for a while, arms folded, heart steady. I didn't cry, not from this. But something deep inside curled in on itself, quietly folding shut like a letter no one intended to send. Love from strangers shouldn't feel more real than love from home. The next morning was treatment day. I didn't speak much as I checked in and found my usual chair. The nurse on duty was Bronwyn, the one who never faked cheer, who always adjusted the angle of the curtain without me asking. She came over, clipped the line in, and whispered, "I shared your story." I blinked. "What?" Bronwyn glanced around and then leaned closer. "I didn't use your name. Just a picture. The other day. You in this chair. The TV behind you." The TV. I remembered what had been playing, some travel channel replaying cruise clips on loop, champagne flutes and Caribbean sunsets bleeding into the room where I sat hooked to a machine to stay alive. Bronwyn pulled out her phone and tilted it toward me. There it was. A blurry photo, not invasive, just distant. Me in the chair, the screen behind me showing a video. My family, Jamela in a maxi dress, dancing, Marcus with his head thrown back in laughter, my mother sipping something pink with a wedge of pineapple. The caption read, "Real life versus family illusion. She deserves more." I didn't say anything, just looked at it until the image blurred from something other than poor focus. Not because I was embarrassed, but because I had never, in all these years, felt that seen. By the time I got home, the post had taken off. Reddit, Twitter, even a few reshared TikToks, edited with sad music, some overlaid text, people asking, "Where's her family? Is this real? Someone check on her." I didn't respond, just scrolled. Most of the comments blurred together, a mix of outrage and sympathy. But one caught my eye. "Sometimes blood doesn't mean bond. Keep going, stranger." I took a screenshot and saved it to a new folder on my desktop. Title: Reasons. The next day, the hospital called. Not Bronwyn, not my coordinator. Legal. Apparently, someone in my family had caught wind of the post, and they weren't pleased. "We received a complaint," the voice said. "They're claiming defamation. That the image and its sharing online have caused them harm." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Harm? "They're concerned about reputation, optics. We're just required to inform you." "Did they mention me?" I asked. "My name? My condition?" Silence. "No," the legal rep said slowly. "Only that the image puts them in a negative light." "Then tell them," I said calmly. "They should have thought about that before making me invisible." The woman on the line didn't reply. She didn't need to. The silence said enough. "They're not protecting family," I continued. They're protecting an image. Let them. I suggest, she added gently, you avoid commenting for now. The less said, the less for them to spin. Understood, I said. Then softer. Let them manage their image. I'll manage my healing. That night, I opened my laptop and clicked New Post. I stared at the blank space for a long moment before typing. You all saw what I never dared say. So, thank you for seeing me. I didn't mention names. I didn't list grievances. Some people raise you to be quiet. Others help you remember your worth. I paused, then added, I'm not waiting anymore. And hit publish. The response came fast. Support. Shares. Quiet solidarity. People who understood. Not all with stories like mine, but all with silences of their own. Then, a new message pinged. Different tone, different name. Username. Katura Pensacola 888. I stared at it for a second. My hands paused on the keys. Avery. It's been years. I've been watching quietly. But I can't anymore. I want to help. My heart clenched. Katura. She wasn't just a neighbor. She was a sister once. The kind you find in backyards, not in bloodlines. We'd made bracelets at age 9 and promised to never lose touch. But life happened. Her family moved. Mine got tighter, smaller, quieter. We hadn't spoken in over a decade. The message continued. I still have the bracelet you gave me. You told me it was a promise. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of that memory hitting me like fresh air after a long, windowless day. No hashtags, no memes, just her name, just a promise. I closed my laptop slowly, carefully, as if sealing something sacred. Maybe, just maybe, some promises are worth keeping. The beeping was the first thing I noticed when I opened my eyes. Not loud, just steady, mechanical, clinical. The kind of sound that tells you you're still here, whether you asked to be or not. I was in the ICU. A nurse stood by my bed, checking the monitor with practiced calm. Glad you're still with us, she said softly, adjusting the IV line. Before I could ask anything, another nurse walked in, holding a remote. Want the TV off? She asked. It's someone's live stream. Birthday party, I think. I glanced up at the screen. Balloons floated behind my sister Jamela. She was wearing a crown, gold plastic, rhinestones sparkling under the light. Her voice rang out, high-pitched and sugary. Thank you for all the birthday wishes, y'all. Sending love and healing vibes to everyone who needs it. I didn't say anything, just turned my head toward the window, wincing at the brightness of the room. My throat was dry. My chest ached. And somewhere beneath the layers of discomfort was a sentence clawing at my ribs. Perfect timing, Jamela. The feed cut off a few moments later. I didn't ask for it. Maybe they figured out it wasn't the best background for someone recovering from a dialysis crash. I laid there, feeling the weight of absence, not from my body, but from theirs. I reached for my phone, shaky hands struggling with the passcode. No missed calls, no texts, not even a half-hearted emoji. I opened Instagram out of reflex. Jamela's post was at the top of my feed. Caption: Manifesting health and happiness for all. Even the quiet ones had healing vibes. #birthday queen. Over 200 likes. A dozen comments calling her radiant, compassionate, the kind of woman the world needed more of. I wasn't a person in her world. I was a prop in her branding. I scrolled past the photos, each one more polished than the last, until I got to the one of her holding a heart-shaped cake with pink frosting and "Breathe easy, beautiful," piped in cursive. I was not a metaphor. I was a patient. 2 days later, the hospital's legal team reached out. I'd just finished lunch, if you can call applesauce and 2 saltines a meal, and the knock on the door startled me. It wasn't a nurse. "Miss Grayson," the man said, "I'm here from legal. May I?" I nodded, gesturing to the chair. He laid out a folder and began speaking in careful tones, the way people do when they're trying not to sound like they're blaming you. "Your family has filed a formal complaint," he said. "They allege the hospital violated their privacy by allowing an image of you with them on the TV in the background to go public." I raised an eyebrow. "So, they're upset the photo made them visible?" He hesitated. "They're claiming defamation." "Emotional distress." I laughed, once, sharp and dry. "Do they realize I didn't post it? That I didn't even know it was taken?" "They've also submitted a message," he continued. "It was included in their complaint." He opened the folder and slid the paper toward me. Jamella's words were printed in black ink. "She's manipulating sympathy. She's not even that sick." I stared at it for a long time, then asked, "Can I get a copy of that?" His face didn't change. "It'll be logged with the case file." "Good," I said, voice even. "Because the next time someone asks why I went quiet, I want them to see this first." The next morning, I got a text from her. "Hey, hope you're okay. Didn't know it got that serious." I stared at the message for a long time. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, then I typed back. "Which part? The kidneys or the betrayal?" There was no reply for hours. When it came, it was short. "You're being dramatic again." I deleted the entire thread. Sat in silence, then whispered, "That's the last time I let her narrative override mine." I spent the afternoon cleaning out my desk drawers and found a dusty velvet pouch wedged between old tax forms and expired coupons. Inside was the bracelet, faded but intact. I hadn't thought about Katura in years, but the voicemail she left earlier replayed in my head. "Still here. Let me in when you're ready." She hadn't asked for a reply. She didn't demand forgiveness, just left the door open. I held the bracelet to my palm and closed my eyes. I was 13 when I gave it to her. We were sitting under the oak tree at the edge of the playground. I'd just been grounded for talking back to my mother, meaning I had asked if she could stop yelling. I gave Katura the bracelet and said, "Promise me you won't forget me, even if I disappear." Present-day me whispered, "I finally remember me." That evening, I checked my email before bed. Subject: Family reunion planning. Zoom call. It was from my aunt. I hadn't heard from her since, maybe my last hospital stay, the one no one visited. Her email was polite, vague, distant, like reading a flyer written by a stranger pretending they knew me. Line 4 made me freeze. "Would be great if Avery could join. It's been so long." I read it twice. Then again. I wasn't being invited back. I was being summoned back into a structure that fed off pretense, into a narrative where I was expected to show up, smile, smooth things over. Again, they didn't want me back. They wanted back what they thought I still owed. I opened the reply window, typed 3 words. "You want closure?" Then I added the rest. "I want truth." It was a message from Amber, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in at least 8 years. Her name alone made my stomach tighten. She'd always been the family's peacekeeper, the one who'd say, "Don't make waves," while standing safely on shore. I opened the text expecting something vague, but instead read, "Hey, are you okay with everything that's going on with Uncle Henry?" I blinked. "Uncle Henry? Dad. What do you mean?" I replied. She responded with a screenshot from a family group chat titled "Support Dad." Names lined the top: Jamella, Marcus, Mom, even Aunt Claudia. My name was nowhere to be found. The message threads went on for days, talking about his condition, his fear, the transplant options. Then I saw it. "Should we ask her?" Yamela wrote. Marcus chimed in. "What if she says no?" And my mother, "Let's wait. Timing matters." That was the moment something in me flipped. They had been discussing my body, my kidney, without including me. Like I was a resource, a donor. Not a daughter, not even a person. Later that night, the message came. Of course, it came from Jamella. Avery, we need to talk. It's about Dad. No greeting, no warmth, just the same clinical tone I'd grown used to hearing from doctors. I didn't answer immediately, let it sit for an hour, then two. Eventually, I agreed to a Zoom call because I wanted to hear it from them directly. I wanted to look them in the face when they said it. The call was set for 8 p.m. At 7:58, I clicked the link. Their faces loaded one by one, Jamella's heavily filtered, Mom's lips pinched, Marcus chewing on something off screen. "Hey, sweetie," Mom started, voice syrupy. "Thanks for making time." I just nodded. No hi, no how are you. I wasn't interested in small talk. Jamela jumped in next. "We've been talking, and, well, it's Dad. He's scared, and the doctors think you're the only match." Her words hung in the air like fog, meant to obscure more than clarify. There it was. The ask, the reason for the sudden interest, the unexpected check-in. No one said sorry. No one said, "We were wrong." No one even acknowledged the group chat I wasn't in. I let the silence grow for a moment. Let them squirm. Then I unmuted and said, "So, let me get this straight. I wasn't important enough to be included in your conversations, but I'm important enough to be sliced open when it's convenient?" Mom winced. "That's not what we meant." "It's exactly what you meant," I said, cutting her off. "You've all mistaken my silence for compliance, for softness, for forgiveness. That ends now." Jamella's face hardened. "Avery, this isn't the time for drama." I stared at her through the screen. "You've called me dramatic so many times, I think you forgot I'm also decisive." Dad, finally speaking, said, "We just didn't know how to ask." "No," I replied, "but you knew how to exclude. You knew how to protect each other. You knew how to strategize, to plan, to delay. That part you handled just fine." No one said anything for a while, not even Marcus, and then I knew. The apology wasn't coming. It never had. It never would. They weren't sorry they hurt me. They were sorry I wouldn't help them now. And I was done being the fallback plan. After I ended the call, I stared at the blank screen, then opened my email. 2. Transplant Coordinator. Subject: Declination of Directed Donation. I kept the language clear, direct. I am formally withdrawing any consideration for directed kidney donation to my father, Henry Grayson. Please mark the decision as irreversible. I hit send without hesitation. The clarity wasn't cruel. It was clean. It was necessary. "They're not losing me now," I said out loud to no one. "They lost me years ago, in rooms like that, ones I was never invited into." I deleted the Zoom recording, cleared my chat history, removed myself from the email thread Amber had forwarded. And finally, I blocked the family thread altogether. A stillness settled over my apartment. Later that evening, I stepped out to check the mailbox. I needed air, movement, something tactile to confirm I was still here, still rooted. And there it was, taped to my door. A plain envelope, handwritten, no name. I looked around, no one in sight. Inside, a note, short, neat, unfamiliar script. "You're right not to give in, but they're not done trying." Anonymous. I reread it twice. Then again, my fingers tightened around the paper, and I whispered to myself, "Let them come."